Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Tech Tutor. Today let's talk about 5 languages you can learn in 2021. If you're new to programming and you want to get started somewhere, but you're thinking, which language do I learn? Which ones should I start looking at now? Maybe you need to understand which frameworks might go with those languages. Well, this video is for you, so let's dig into it now. So let's start with number 5. I have C# for this one because of the .NET framework, which is pretty popular. And also, if you want to become a game developer, you can use it to program in Unity. So if you have more of an area of interest where, again, you want to get into game development, this language might be more of interest to you because you can use Unity at home and start developing games now and just try to have fun with it. But the pay is not as high, at least from what I could find. .NET Framework is a software development platform developed by Microsoft for building and running Windows applications. The .NET Framework consists of developer tools, programming languages, and libraries to build desktop and web applications. It is also used to build websites, web services, and games. And again, back to Unity, it's not a framework, but it is a game engine. It's cross-platform, so you can use it on Windows and Mac. And again, as I was saying, with the developer salaries, at least from what you can find online, if you go to Indeed, you can see that a .NET developer makes around $97,000 a year. And then Glassdoor has the base salary as $68,524 for a .NET developer. And if you look at just a game programmer on Glassdoor, it's around $51,000. So again, at least if you're just looking online for what the average pay is according to some of the websites, it is a little bit lower, but maybe this is the passion area for you, and that's why you might be more interested in learning C#. So let's move on to our next language. Coming in at number 4, I have Objective-C. Or if you want to also start learning Swift, the thing about Swift is it's basically also created by Apple and attempt to kind of replace Objective-C. It is used for Apple mobile development, and if you want to become an Apple mobile developer, this is where you'd want to go. Maybe that's too specialized for you, but otherwise the pay is not too bad. And I have it in 4 because it is a specialized language more for Apple, so it kind of targets you into one very specific direction, so maybe that's why you wouldn't want to learn it. But hey, if you love Apple products, then why not give this one a shot? A little bit about Objective-C. It's a compiled general-purpose object-oriented programming language. And as I said, Swift is a general-purpose multi-paradigm compiled programming language that was also developed by Apple in the open source community. It was first released in 2014, and it was developed again as a replacement for Apple's earlier programming language, Objective-C. One of the popular frameworks for Objective-C is Foundation. The Foundation framework provides a base layer of functionality for apps and frameworks, including data storage and persistence, text processing, date and time calculations, sorting and filtering, and networking. The classes, protocols, and data types defined by Foundation are used throughout the Mac OS, iOS, watchOS, and tvOS SDKs. Another popular framework you will want to look into if you are learning Objective-C is UIKit. It is the framework that you'll see used most often when developing iOS applications. It defines the core components of an iOS application, from labels and buttons to table views and navigation controllers. Now again, as I was saying, the pay on this one is a little bit higher. So a mobile developer, at least according to Indeed.com, the average pay is $118,000. The base pay on Glassdoor is marked as $91,727. You may see this pay fluctuate, and again, the thing that gets interesting with the Objective-C/Swift direction is that, again, some companies have adapted to Swift already, other companies are still using Objective-C, so you might have a little bit of difficulty figuring out which direction to hone in on, and maybe that's another one of those reasons why I kind of put this as number 4 and not a little bit higher, even though the pay's better. And maybe, again, pay's not your main concern, you maybe just love Apple products, and maybe that's why you'd want to go with Objective-C or Swift. Coming in at number 3, I put Python. This is because it's very popular for machine learning languages. It's a scripting-based language, and if you're gearing toward more of a data scientist career route, this is probably the language you'd want to learn. It's also popular for other things. You can still use it for web applications because of different libraries that are available to you and frameworks. So let's get into a few of those. Some of the popular frameworks of Python are Django, which encourages rapid development for web applications, and Flask, which is another rapid development framework for web development. Django is a full-stack web framework, whereas Flask is a micro, lightweight web framework. The features provided by Django help developers to build large and complex web applications. Python is an interpreted high-level and general-purpose programming language. Python's design philosophy emphasizes code readability with its notable use of significant white space. So that's kind of a blessing and a curse. White space can actually break your code, so it may be a little bit confusing for people that are new, but once you get used to it, it's not too bad. And the pay can be a little bit higher again. The average pay of a Python developer, according to Indeed.com, is $112,000. And the base pay, according to Glassdoor, is around $76,000. So this kind of all depends on what the job is. Again, if you went into data scientist career path, you might see higher pay. If you're just using it for web development, it's kind of specialized. People have to have their companies focused on using Django or Flask or maybe another framework that helps them create web apps. It's not as common, at least not from my experience. So again, I would probably only go this direction if you're looking more for data scientist type of career path along with machine learning libraries. And if you are very interested in the machine learning libraries, a lot of libraries that are used for machine learning are NumPy, Deno, TensorFlow, Keras, PyTorch, Pandas, and Matplotlib. These get pretty complex, so if you're not very math friendly, you might not want to go in this direction. It can be a little confusing. Some of these libraries do try to make it easier for you though. So if you just want to dabble with it, I highly suggest playing around with it, but maybe after you try it out, you'll figure out whether this is something you would love or if you would rather pursue a different language. For number 2, I have JavaScript. This is because it can be used for both front-end and back-end. It's very common in the front-end framework React. So if you want to learn to become a front-end developer, React is very popular right now. It is a little complex. I wouldn't say it's as beginner-friendly as some other directions, but it is very popular and it does give you a lot of flexibility to, again, if you want to learn React, JavaScript will help get you there, but you could also then utilize it on the back end too, because there is express.js, and this will allow you to set up a server where you could use React on the front end and express.js on the back end. Now a little bit about JavaScript. JavaScript is a scripting language, so it's not compiled, and it can be a little bit more difficult to debug compared to a compiled language, but it is very popular again for doing a lot of actions on the front end. However, there is TypeScript, which is a type superset of JavaScript, which compiles to plain JavaScript. It is known as an object-oriented programming language, and this will help you to catch errors that you wouldn't catch as easily with JavaScript. So it is still used at some places. The thing with if you learn TypeScript, you might be specializing to a point where you won't see as many jobs asking for TypeScript versus just JavaScript, but it does give you the flexibility to, again, add a little bit more error checking via TypeScript, and it is still pretty popular. Some of the popular frameworks for JavaScript I already mentioned, but we'll go back over them, which is React.js for your front end, AngularJS also used in the front end, just plain Angular, which usually works with TypeScript, and then Express.js, which again is to help you with your backend development if you want to use JavaScript. So if you look up the average pay for a front-end developer on Indeed, it's around $110,000. The Glassdoor base backend pay is around $79,000, and Glassdoor has the base front-end pay at around $76,000. And then coming in at number 1, I have Java. This is because Java is very common, at least with web applications. You often see it used with the Spring framework, which I'll get into in just a moment. And it also is common in Android. So if you're working as an Android developer, you can use Java. There's obviously other languages that sometimes get used there too. Sometimes you'll see Kotlin, but again, Java is pretty common. And if you learn Java, then you could potentially use it to go in an Android route, or again, web development if you're using like the Java Spring framework or other Java applications. So again, I find that Java can be pretty flexible, and that's why I suggest it as my number 1. So Java is a cross-platform object-oriented compiled language, and you can use it to perform multi-threading, which you don't get with the other scripting languages. This can kind of help with performing very large tasks because you can split them into multiple threads. You'll see it with gaming development too, where people will use it to split off into threads to handle a lot of heavy processing, or other apps that just require a lot of parallel processing to get something done in a quicker time period than if you needed to, again, run a script that can only really work through one thing at a time. A couple of the popular frameworks for Java are Spring, which is one I'm very familiar with. And if you Want to learn more about Java Spring? I've got a few videos on that. It is used for web development, it helps you get started quickly, and it helps you interact with all different types of sources. So if you need to interact with Amazon Web Services, there's a library portion of Java Spring for that. You can spin up a server really quickly. So it's very flexible. It's used very often, at least from my experience. And it does have its own learning curve, but it is very useful and can help you get started quickly. Hibernate is also another popular framework. It is used within Spring, but you can use it separately, and it helps you interact with your database. Now, the pay of a Java developer on Indeed, the average pay is listed as $103,000, and the base pay on Glassdoor is around $79,000. And then if you were to use Java to pursue maybe Android app development, it's listed in Glassdoor as roughly around $70,000. So again, you could use it for the Android route. There are other languages sometimes used in Android development, but if you learn Java, you do have the flexibility that if the job listing says, that they want Java for web development, you could fit in there. And if you wanted to go into Android development, again, as long as the listing mentions that they use Java for that, and you have the flexibility to go either route. Once you kind of define your path and figure out what you want best, you're probably going to start getting more focused experience and maybe only go during that certain route. But at least this gives you the flexibility to have potentially two options of directions to go in with your career when you're first starting.
So that wraps up this top 5 list on programming languages to learn in 2021. Let me know in the comments what you thought of my ranking list and if you would have ranked things differently. I tried to rank the list based on ease of learning, average pay, and job availability. Please like and subscribe for future content, and let me know what you'd like to see next.